Tema, everybody, good evening. I am Christie Smirl, spiritually known as Kalavati Devi, and welcome to Tuesday night Kali Maa studies. So tonight we are going over verse 34 in the Kali Sahasranama. So tonight we're covering the names and forms of the Holy Mother, names 258 through 266. So before we get started, let's go ahead and do our prostrations to the Holy Mother's Son. Bring your hands to heart center. We'll do 3 ohms first. Inhale. Om. Om. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Ekatantaya Vidmahe Vakratundaya Dhimahi Tano Dantihi Prachodayat. Om Namo Bhagavate Ekadam Sraya Hasmukar Lambodare Uchista Mahatmane Om Krom Rim Gege Swaha. Jimo. All right, so welcome everybody. Like I said, tonight we are doing verse 34 of the Kali Sahasranama, and let's take a listen to what the verse sounds like tonight. Padma padmalayā padmāmukhī padmavibhūṣaṇā Hākinī śākinī śāntā rākiṇī rudhirapriyā. So you can hear by listening to the verse that there's several names tonight that have Padma in it. And we'll be going over each of the names and forms of the Holy Mother, name by name. And for those of you who've been joining, we're going through the entire 1008 names. Good evening, Tema Bhumi. Thank you for joining. All right, so if you ever want the names, I always have them typed in the description of the video so that you can read along or cut, copy, paste, and keep them for your records too. All right, so let's look at name 258, Padma. This is the root word of several of the names and forms, but Padma is one of the names and forms of Kali Maa. And Padma means she who is the lotus. Padma is a lotus. So this is Kali Maa in the form of a beautiful lotus flower. And you know all the stories about lotus flowers, how, spiritually they represent how, we begin as seeds in the dark, in the mud, and then we eventually grow out of the darkness with bravery and faith, and then bloom as lotus flowers. And lotus flowers are very specific in representing and showing signs that this form of the mother is giving beauty. She's giving purity and enlightenment. So not just always the dark forms of Kali Maa, but the beautiful forms. Now, name 259 also has the root Padma in it, padmalayā. And padmalayā is she who resides in the lotus. So this is her dwelling place. And, if you've studied this lineage of information with Kali Maa, we often see lotus flowers in her hand, denoting, final victory. And many times we see her standing, sitting, or laying down in a lotus flower. Now, name 260 also has the name root Padma in it. It's padmamukhī. And mukhi is mouth or face in some instances. So this is she who has the face or mouth of a lotus flower. And then another one with Padma is padmavibhūṣaṇā. And this is she who shines like a lotus flower. Bhūṣaṇā means like an ornamentation, a decoration or embellishment. So we have 4 names in a row for Kali Maa that have to do with the beauty of the flower lotus. Now we're going to switch gears and go into a couple more Dakinis. So in the last couple weeks, we covered some of the Dakinis. And tonight we're going to be talking first about Hākinī, name 262. So first let me get a picture that I created of Hākinī. I made these with my mom one time. They're actually paper dolls. You know, art to the Holy Mother comes in all sorts of different forms and shapes. And let me find the right page real quick. No, that's Shakini. She's right after Hakini. Whoops, oops, all my paper's falling out. Give me a second. All right, so let's find Hakini. Here we go. So we see here in the image of Hakini, we'll look at several of the things that she's holding in her hands. She has a mala, you can see, wrapped around one hand, a book, a dhamaru. She also has a kapala, a skull bowl. And if you notice, she also has the head or an animal spirit of the lion. So let's look closely at Hakini tonight. So in the puja books for Kali Maa, Hakini is the energy of the divine eye. And Hakini means power, power to rule, and the mind's ability to govern itself. Now, goddess Hakini, so Kali Maa as Hakini, resides in the third eye chakra. And she, when worked with, can unlock mental power, bring emotional liberation, mental liberation, and significantly increase intuition, psychic abilities associated with the third eye, and wisdom. Now, when we look at Hakini, we also see beautiful ability to transcend dualities of rajas and tamas. So if you've studied Ayurvedic medicine, you know that the mind has three gunas or qualities or states. There's sattva, which is peaceful, typically seen as more preferable. And then there's rajas, which is active and solar, but in too high levels, it becomes rajasic, very agitating. And then there's tamasic, it's like a rest in a therapeutic way, rejuvenation of the mind, downtime of the mind. But in a pathological state, tamas can be very heavy and depressing, causing paranoias and fears. And Shakini Maa, when we work with her appropriately, can help liberate us from that. Now, other things that we see when working with Shakini Maa, Kali Maa as the Dakini, Hakini, she helps balance mood swings, and she helps enhance the ability to have self-discipline and self-insight, and helps us see things more from the intuitive soul rather than the limited, conditioned human mind. Now, when we look at Hakini, we saw the picture of her, and she has a dhamaru drum in her hand, the double-sided drum. She's also holding mala beads. So one of the beautiful practices of cultivating control over the mind is the application of japa mantra. So sitting with your mala beads of 108 and doing full rounds of mantras. You know, when we look at the word mantra, manas is mind, and tra is waves. So mantras specifically have the ability to rejuvenate, redirect, and recreate the types of mind waves that are occurring within our human experience. Now, we saw in her image, Shakini Maa has two mudras, right? Our typical Abhaya, to not fear, and then Varada, granting boons. And we've gone over that many, many weeks already. Other things that we see in Hakini's hands is a book. So not only is it the mental knowledge of the human mind, but also the the spiritual knowledge and things of the higher transcendental awareness. All right. An interesting thing about Hakini is in some of the Tantras, Tantra as in a book, she's described as having the head of a lion. And we know that the lion is very important for bringing victory and strength and courage. And when we see the lion form of Kali Maa, we think of a lot of different, very fierce forms, but very protective at the same time. When we are working with Hakini Maa, we have the ability to do different sadhanas to enhance our ability to harness that relationship between Kali Maa, the mother, Hakini Maa, and the third eye, our minds, but to create a bridging and a connection. So if you study Ayurvedic medicine or yoga, many different lines of study will come across this information. We know that the human body is composed of 5 sheaths, panchakoshas, and I think I've referred to this in other videos. We have the Annamaya kosha, gross physical body, bones, flesh, muscles, hair, things like this. And then we have the Pranamaya kosha, breath. That's why we practice pranayama in many spiritual practices. Then we have the Manomaya kosha, so the mind. And it's very different from what they call the Vijnanamaya kosha, the soul's intelligence. So it's very important to understand when we're working with Hakini Maa, we're not just working with our human mind. We're trying to bridge the gap between the knowledge coming through the human mind and the true, still knowledge of the soul's intelligence. And that's where Hakini Maa is this wonderful, wonderful form of Kali Maa to work with. All right, let's take a look at Kali Maa's name 263, Shakini. So Shakini, let's get the image of her as well, is very similar in some ways. You can see she also has a skull bowl. She also has a book. And notice she has that lotus flower. Some of the other accoutrement that she has is a noose, a bow, an arrow, and a spear, as well as an elephant goad. And you can notice she also has a lion head in several of the tantric texts, but one of them in particular. So Shakini Maa, Kali Maa as Shakini, is she who is the energy of peace. And she is the Dakini, Shakini is the Dakini, that is associated with the Vishudha chakra, the throat chakra, and the life force of Kundalini. Now we know Kundalini is all over, but when we work with Shakini Maa, we specifically are working to dispel harm. We're working to dispel toxins from the throat, poisons from the throat, and we're also trying to bring about our highest emanation. And that's the goal anytime we're working with Kali Maa. But Shakini Maa is specifically associated with very special siddhis and powers that, it's an argument or debate whether or not we should even work with these types of energies. And many times people will ask me, well, what's the difference between a Shakti and a Siddhi? So a Shakti generally is understood as a special skill, a special ability, a special power, a magical power. Or it could be something like artwork or dancing or articulation or making music. And this Shakti, they say, is natural born to us. So Shakini can help uncover that natural Shakti that we have inside of us. But a Siddhi, which Shakini Maa is also associated with, Siddhis are considered a little bit more like supernatural skills. So we don't want to get distracted by them because it can really take us off the spiritual pathway and entangle our ego and then entangle us in unnecessary karma. So it's best when we're working with Shakini Maa to try to bring about a purification of the throat chakra, a purification of how we communicate, what we communicate, who we communicate with, and what type of toxic communication patterns can we break or reconstruct. This is an area where Shakini Maa can help us overcome things like dishonesty, gossip, harsh speech, cruel criticism, or even things like difficulty speaking one's truth or difficulty with public speaking, anything to do with speaking. But it's not just about speaking, it's also about communication. And communication comes in different forms than just flapping lips on a mouth, right? It's written communication, poetry communication, music communication, nonverbal communication, telepathic communication as well. Namaste, Kali Dub Project. Thank you for joining. All right. So we already said that she holds a bow, a spear, a chakra, the sudarshan, the disc. It's associated with the spinning of time, the control of time, but it can also be used as a weapon and thrown and slice. She's also seen holding, like I said, a elephant goad, a kapala, a human skull bowl, and a noose or lasso. Adesha Desh. Thank you for joining. All right, now, what's beautiful about Shakini Maa is she also brings this awareness through her depiction in certain places. She has 5 heads, if you notice, 5 heads. And that padmāmukhī, or 5-headed emanation, is often associated with the 5-headed form of Shiva. And each head is associated with the different directions as well as the 5 elements. Now, we also mentioned that Shakini Maa has the head of a lion in certain tantric texts. And we know, as we talked just prior about Hākinī Maa, we know that the lion brings about spiritual sovereignty. The lion is associated with forms of the mother also, like Durga Maa riding in on her lion, or some of the even more powerful forms of the mother that are associated with the lion that break black magic. Very, very, very powerful. So Hākinī Maa and Shakini Maa. Now let's take a look at name 264 for tonight. Śāntā. Very beautiful form of Kali Maa. She who is peace. One of the reasons why I wanted to do this exploration of the Kali Sahasranama is, a lot of times I talk to people about Kali Maa because I love talking about her. She just is in my mind constantly. And so many people would say things like, oh, she's so violent and bloody and scary and things of this nature. And I was like, no, not really. I mean, yes, sometimes she is, but there's so many other forms of the mother. So śāntā, she who is peace, she who is calm, tranquil, content, and pacified in happiness. All right. Now, name 265 in verse 34 is Rākiṇī. We've already discussed Rākiṇī. She's also one of the Dakinis, and that was in name 253. So we won't spend a lot of time on that name, but it's, she who has the energy of subtlety. She who is associated also with blood, and she who resides in the Svadhisthana chakra, so the low abdominal psychic energy pranic center. And we talked last week about the fact, or maybe it was the week before, that she's often seen with the head of an owl. I found a beautiful red-tailed hawk today in the gutter while I was on a walk. So we put that hawk to rest. It reminded me of Hākinī with her owl head. Okay, last name for tonight. A very interesting night, or interesting name, number 266, rudhirapriyā. Rudhirapriyā. So this is sometimes translated in the Kali Puja books as she who is the beloved of those who cry. She who is the beloved of those who cry. Well, let's take a look a little closer at the breakdown of the name and get a deeper understanding of it. So rudhira means blood or blood-colored, like crimson. And priya means beloved or very dear or fond of. So is it that she's fond of the color red and crimson? Is it that she's fond of blood? Well, any of you who have done very devoted, serious Kali Maa sadhanas know that many times in the traditional methods, there is blood offering, whether it be your own, whether it be menstrual blood, whether it be through bloodletting, or whether it be through animal. And I've discussed in previous sessions that here at the ashram, we are completely ahimsa. We don't consume meat, and we don't offer blood from a non-volunteering animal. So the only blood that would be offered to Kali Maa would be your own, or your own life force, because here I am in living form with all this blood inside of me. And when we work deeply with the mother and we bring her into the heart, into the lotus of the heart, then she is in our entire bloodstream. But let's look a little closer at rudhirapriyā as the 266th name. Now, this is associated with a very forceful form of the mother, holding weapons. She's associated with battle, associated with blood, in the sense of destroying ignorance. And that blood represents also illusions that bind humans to this material plane. But when we are working with Kali Maa, they also say that this form of her, rudhirapriyā, goes and consoles those who have been in battle and who are bleeding. Those who are not just bleeding blood, but those who are crying. So that's why in the puja books, rudhirapriyā is she who is the beloved of those who cry. So another reason why I wanted to go over all these different names and just explore them is so that we can understand deeper and different ways of communing with the mother. Different names, different forms, different imagery, different locations in the body. And we've gone over several Dakinis now who reside in the chakras, in the dhatus, in the tissues. And we've talked about very fierce forms of the mother, and we've talked about very beautiful, peaceful, benevolent forms of the mother. So tonight's names: she who's the beloved of those who cry or those who bleed. She who is subtle. She who is peaceful. She who is the energy of peace, Shakini Maa. She who is the energy of the divine eye, Hākinī Maa. She who shines like a lotus, padmavibhūṣaṇā. She who has the mouth or face of a lotus, padmamukhī. And padmalayā, she who resides inside the lotus, and Padma, she who is the lotus. So I hope you enjoy those names tonight. Namaste. Thank you for joining Naga Creed. So always I have the names in the description of the video, and if you haven't hit subscribe, please hit subscribe so that you can catch all of these, because we're just getting to name 266. We're going all the way to 1008. So just imagine all the different names, forms, and ways that we can deepen our relationship with the mother, because why wouldn't we want to? Namaste, everybody. Jema, Jema, Jema. I'll see you all next Tuesday, 6 p.m. Pacific Coast time. Same channel, YouTube Live.